If Final Destination Bloodlines is the steak dinner of this film franchise, then The Final Destination, the fourth one, is basically a microwave hot dog. Honestly, the scariest part of this movie is the fact that I paid full price for the ticket, but I'm curious, what's your favorite Final Destination movie? It's day 72 of 365. Today's movie, The Final Destination. This one's directed by David R. Ellis, the mind behind Snakes on a Plane, I shit you not. And it stars Bobby Campo and Shantel VanSanten as a couple trying to escape the unrelenting force of death itself. This one is notably the worst reviewed in the series, and it's the only one missing Tony Todd. Coincidence? I think not. This one feels like death took a day off. It is spring break for the Grim Reaper, and that does not bode well for this review. It's the lowest on Rotten Tomatoes of the series. And I get why, actually. This one purposefully breaks the rules of the canon. About 20 minutes of the movie's runtime is just premonition, so the deaths don't count. And the deaths that do end up on screen are usually subversions of the formula that we've come to learn to love from the series. Let's talk about that formula for just a minute so you understand what page I'm on. When we watch a Final Destination movie, we know that a death scene is about to happen. Multiple items will be set up for us to build a kind of Rube Goldbergian contraption that will lead to a very satisfying, if not squeamish, death for one of our victims. It's always done with some of the most banal things in our environment, if not over the top just for the visual of it. But that's half the fun, is that you can sit in an environment and wonder, what could kill me here? If you're in a tanning booth, it's not just the tanning bed, but it could be the items in the room. This movie, on the other hand, will do the setup with the Rube Goldbergian trap, but then leave us questioning if it's actually going to pay off or not. Here's a great example. Think about the lawnmower kill. The things that are set up in that scene, the goop on the floor, the fan blades above, even the sharp scissors near someone's eye, those are setting up the kinds of squeamishness that we've learned to love about the series. But then she's only killed by a rock getting launched out of the lawnmower. That's not something that we set up except for the establishing shot at the beginning of this scene. To subvert the formula like this makes the payoff feel half-assed. It's not very inventive, and so that makes this one really difficult for me to find three things that I love about it, but we're gonna try anyways. The first thing that I love about this film is the pool death. It is genuinely hilarious. This is an urban legend that has been passed around the internet. I'm actually a certified pool operator. I went through the OSHA training way back in 2008 or 9, back when It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia had just started airing, which I'm going to loop back around to in a second. I went through that training, and this is something they even brought up within that. If you want to get nerdy about why this scene doesn't work, he drains the pool, not vacuums it. And that's important because the pool drain uses gravity to release the water out into the substrate underneath of a pool. That's how a pool drain works. But even if it didn't, in a pool that size, an Olympic-sized swimming pool, there are multiple ports at the bottom of the pool, so there wouldn't be enough to cause enough suction to pull someone's innards out. It's an impossibility. Even if it was the vacuums on a pool are not strong enough to do this either, because there's multiple vacuum inputs around the side of the pool. Now, again, I only know this because I worked on pools professionally, and so this is something that I would bring up to people all the time after this movie came out to tell them that it's actually very safe, and no, their kid isn't going to be turned inside out if he gets stuck on the bottom. There's not enough pressure at the bottom to do that. It's the play out of the urban myth that I really love so much here. It's playing with the ideas in a very visceral and fun way. Yeah, it makes sense that it's in the worst of these movies because it is the least sensical, but the setup, the guy draining his balls before he's then drained of his innards in the pool, it's too hilarious. This is really excellent meta joke writing, and so I have to at least tip my hat to that, right? I mean, it's funny. It makes me chuckle every time I see the scene. And the reason I bring up It's Always Sunny at the beginning is because they actually committed an episode to this in which Mac kind of gets his rocks off doing exactly this, because that's about all you could perform on a pool drain like this. It's done perfectly realistically in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and absolutely absurdly unrealistically here, but that's the first thing that I find funny. The second thing that I love about Final Destination 4 is that the finale explosion scene actually follows the rules of the series. For a film that's willing to break the rules of the canon for the kills themselves, there is an internal consistency to this series that it decides to follow, namely that when he saves a room full of people in the theater, it takes a few weeks for death to catch back up to him and kill him at the end of the movie. I love that that's why we get the ending that we get, that they never prevented death from coming after them because no one died and was resurrected, as we learned in Bloodlines. And I think the third film, that those are the rules. You have to literally pass away and come back to life for death to skip over you. It has to actually get you, and then you come back from that for it to skip over you. This movie observes that rule and says, no, if he's going to save this room full of people in the theater, what we can assume is that off screen over the next 2 weeks, every single person that went to see that movie eventually died, which is shockingly the more interesting movie for us to watch. A Final Destination film where a bunch of people die in a movie theater explosion, and then a detective linking only the movie-going experience to that as all these people get picked off. It starts off like a serial killer movie and then turns into a Final Destination film. That could have been an insanely great pitch for them to run with, but instead gets capsized and turned into a micro version in the last 10 minutes of the movie. This is something that used to drive me crazy on Film Rescue. The entire reason that podcast exists, actually, is because I would see scenes like that and go, wow, that's a really cool idea. Too bad the whole fucking movie skipped it. Oh well, at least it gave me a little nostalgia for my podcast and followed the rules of the series enough that there is actually internal logic here. Not to mention, the scene itself is kind of meta. We'll call that a bonus thing. The fact that it's a movie about Final Destination and there's an explosion happening in the film, the bomb countdown ends up counting down to a real explosion, all of that's really fun. There's a lot of goofiness in this fourth movie that you could almost call this like the scary movie version of a Final Destination. Like, if you don't take it as an actual mainline series, but instead watch it as if it's a comedy in the vein of Final Destination, the movie becomes a lot more fun. I'm telling you, this one goes from a 28% to a 98% if this is the Wayans brothers doing Final Destination. The third and final thing that I love about Final Destination 4 is that we finally have an argument for 3D. I'm not usually a proponent for 3D films. They're something that I find to be a little kitsch, a little nerdy, maybe just like a good experiment, but not something that I specifically always enjoy myself when I go to see. I think about movies like Avatar and how they can really be added to with 3D. So I do hold out for the idea of good 3D films, but usually it's something that feels kind of wedged into a movie. But speaking of wedges, this is, I think, a perfect opportunity to use 3D filmmaking in that almost every death in the movie has a 3D component to it. If you're going to do it, commit hard like that. I love that the entire opening of this movie, I forgot that it was presented in 3D originally until I watched it on my laptop the other night. And then every kill reminded me, oh yeah, this movie was in 3D, wasn't it? This is one of the few exceptions to the rule where I think that if you're not adding a ton of depth to a beautiful, gorgeous environment, at least make it come to the very forefront. Really bring it out to the audience and involve them in what's happening. This is a good argument for 3D in films. But I don't know, what do you think? What's your favorite of the Final Destination series? Do you hate this one as much as it seems to be hated online? Or does this one end up being one of your favorites because it's kind of funny? Our next movie is one that I'm pretty sure nobody went to see. I might have one of the last ticket stubs in existence for it. We're talking about 9, starring Elijah Wood and John C. Reilly. Next time, I'll see you tomorrow.